Okay, here's where we're going to start our Altium Designer projects. So go to your icon after you've installed your Altium. Double click it. We'll open Altium. Takes it just a minute to open. It's a pretty large program. And usually the first thing you'll want to do is check and make sure you're still licensed. So I'm going to tell it to reconnect to the private license server. I'm going to highlight that server, tell it activate the license, and I'm good. I'm now activated and I'm licensed and ready to go. A couple things I want to start with is Altium has some default settings that we'll want to adjust. One is the default size of the paper that Altium is assuming you're going to use, which is A4. We don't use A4 size paper here in the US. We use letter. So let's change that to start with. We'll go here to Altium Preferences. I'll go to Schematic General, and we'll see default blank sheet size. That's the size of the paper, right? The drawing area. I'm going to click here and tell it letter and apply. Okay. So what I've done there is told it I want to use letter size paper and not A4. If you forget to do that, it will default to A4, and we can always change that, and I'll show you how to change that once we get our project started. So to start a project, we'll go to File up here in the corner, New, and we don't want to start with a schematic, and we don't want to start with a PCB. We want to start with a project, and the reason is this is a relational type program, and it's going to work in hierarchy. So if I have a project, under the project I can have a schematic and a PCB, and since the schematic and the printed circuit board are inside the project, it means they're related to each other. If they're not inside the project, then I won't be able to move parts from my schematic to my printed circuit board. And I can demo that later so you'll see. So I'm going to tell it new project. It pops this up. What type of project do I want? A script, an integrated library, an FPGA. No, I want a printed circuit board, right? So I'm going to tell it PCB project. The name, I'm going to name mine op amp because that's the little demo we're going to do here. And it says, where do you want to save it? So I'm going to copy that. Control C to copy. Where do I want to save it? It says browse locations. So here's where it's going to automatically save it. Now I'm going to start a new folder and call it op amp. So that's where I want to save it. And I'll tell it OK. Now it's going to generate my project. So if I come over here to projects, here you see I have an op amp project PCB, no documents added. Now I have a couple of options. I can come here to File, New, Schematic, right? Or since my op amp project's there, I can right click, say Add New to Project, Schematic. And there's my schematic. I can go back here to my project, right click, Add New to Project, PCB. Now Altium is going to default to a certain file name for your schematic and for your printed circuit board, and you'll see where it says Sheet 1 schematic document and PCB1 schematic document. I always urge everybody, don't leave it Sheet 1 and don't leave it PCB1 because several people will anyway, and then it gets confusing if you turn your PCB in to get it done and people look at it and say, well, I got 5 PCB1s. Or if you have several revisions and different PCBs you're working on for your project, you'll look at it and say, geez, I got 5 schematic ones. I don't know which one it is. So we want to name them. I'm going to come here and right click and say Save As, and I'll paste, Control V. I'm going to call it op amp. And then for my PCB, I'll save as op amp. And then I'll do a file save all. Okay, now I have everything saved. My project's open. You'll see that my names are here, my source documents that are underneath my PCB project. I have tabs up here. I can look at my account again, my schematics. Here's a sheet. I'm going to move it over here. Just pin it over there so it gets out of the way. And here's my sheet to draw on, and there's my PCB. So in the sheet, when we draw on there, it's going to be like you did in PSpice or LTSpice. You're going to want to place parts on your schematic. So we'll start with that. And where do I get my parts? In the libraries. So we'll click on the library tab. Here it has the footprint, the description, the library. I'm going to move some of this so it's a little bit easier to read. You'll see where it says B and C. I can see the schematic part here, the footprint down here. If I come to another part, say a header, 2-pin header, schematic part, footprint. To change my libraries, I'm going to come to this toolbar and say I want miscellaneous devices. Now, when I look at my miscellaneous devices, what do I see? Transistors, antenna, a battery, capacitor. Here's a cap. There's the footprint. So let's come down here and select an op-amp. There's the op-amp. Op-amp symbol. Alright, I can move this down a little bit too. We can see it a little bit larger. There we go. Make that a little bit larger. To place the op-amp part, you'll see the toolbar up here says place op-amp. I left click on it. There's my op-amp. I can place it anywhere in my PCB. To place it, I simply left click. If I want to rotate it, I hit my space bar. Unlike PSpice or LTSpice, it's not Control R to rotate. In Altium, they decided to use space bar. So if I do my space bar, I see it rotate. I can place it wherever I want. I left click. Altium's going to place my part there. There we go. Now you see the part's still attached to my mouse, so I can place more than one. I only need one for this project, so I'm not going to place more. Now to stop placing that part, I can right click or I can hit escape. So I'm going to right click. There's my part. I can still hold my mouse down, right? I can put my mouse there, hold down the left button, keep the left button down. I can still rotate it. I can still move it. Let go of the left button. It's placed. Now, it's a little bit small. If I want to zoom in, I have a couple of options. I can hold my control key down and use my scroll wheel on my mouse and zoom in and out. I can hit page up and page down. I can come here and use this toolbar that says fit all objects. I only have one object, so it fits the whole thing in the screen. These are handy to place things around. Now if I have my project zoomed way in, I can use my right mouse button and hold it down. My pointer turns to a hand. See, as I press it down, I can move my schematic sheet around this way. I can use these scroll bars to move it around. So you have a lot of options. Alright, let's place some more parts. I'm going to go back to libraries. There's my op-amp. And we'll find a resistor here. Here's resistor 1. You can see the schematic symbol, and there's the footprint. Now I keep using this term footprint. Footprint is what the part actually looks like on the printed circuit board. Now remember that parts come in all different shapes and sizes, even though the schematic part may look the same. For instance, a resistor. There are little tiny surface mount resistors that are hard to see with your naked eye. There are huge, large resistors used to test generators and UPS systems. It may be a 3,000 watt resistor that's 2 feet long and 3 inches in diameter. Obviously the same schematic part, different footprint. So footprints will become important, and you'll see as we move these parts over to our PCB. Now I'm going to place some of these. You'll see there's 3 different resistors here that they give you as defaults. This one has a little box for the symbol, that little box for the symbol is common in Europe. The little squiggly line here is more common here in the United States. Here's a squiggly line, but you'll see the footprint changes. I'm going to place a couple of types. So let's place a resistor here. Maybe I want this to be my input resistor. I'll just right click it. Maybe I want a feedback resistor. Now I'm going to right click to stop placing parts. Back to my libraries, I'm going to change to resistor 3. You'll see that this is a surface mount resistor. Right, I have a few options here of different footprints. We'll just pick this 1210 here. I'll say place the resistor. And you'll see they always say 1K ohm when I place this, but I'm going to show you what you can do before you place it. And we'll use this when we place some capacitors. I'm going to hit the tab key before I left click. Tab key. When I do that, the properties for this part show. And you'll see where it says 1000 ohms. I want this one to be 50 ohms. You'll see where this says RES3 is visible. I don't want that to be visible. And down here are footprints. I'll leave those alone. So now it says 50 ohms. I can place it, and you'll see if I needed another one, it's ready to go at the same value. This will come in handy later. Alright, I right click, stop placing parts. These parts work the same. I can hold my mouse down, rotate them. I can hold my mouse down and move them. It all works the same. I want to wire these up. So let's see how to wire our parts in Altium. Up in our toolbar here, you'll see one tool that says place wire. I'm going to click the place wire. And when I go to place it, if we zoom in, you'll see that my mouse pointer is gray. And at the end of the resistor, there's a little box with a little plus symbol in there. I'm going to move over there. And you'll see that when I move in there, my little pointer turns red. Now I hope on the video it shows that, but it turns red when I place it there. That's the actual node connection. When I hook it there, I'm making an electrical connection to that part, that node. So I can left click, draw a wire, see it turn red again, left click, I now have a connection. I can connect on these nodes with no problem. That's where I want to connect. But visually, I might make a mistake and come over here, put a wire on there, all right, and come over here and connect. And you'll see when I did that, here I'll wire another one. If I came here, my little X doesn't turn red. It turns red here. So if I came up here, I'm good. I'm making a connection. You'll notice when I connect it here in the middle of that wire, I got a junction. That little dot shows that those are connected. But here I have a problem. I've drawn this in, my electrical connection's here. This is just part of the graphics. No real electrical connection. So what does that mean? Well, what it means is this resistor is not connected here. So I'm going to highlight that wire, right? I'm just going to left click on the wire. It highlights it. I'm going to drag it over. Now look what happens when I dragged it over. My connection point turned red down there again, showing I made that electrical connection. So now I have a connection there. This is a common problem. People will do this and it looks good on the schematic, but there's no connection on your PCB. So be careful when you do that. Look at it, make sure you're connecting to those nodes.